shots like Texas Tech did. And so I think the right team won last night. And this story of redemption is unbelievable. It'll be a lifetime movie probably one day. And what's amazing about it is, not only did they lost obviously last year to UMBC, a 16 beat a 1, but Virginia could have easily lost in this year's tournament multiple times. It wasn't like they just came in and just smashed everybody in 6 games and they were, that was it. I mean, they could have easily lost to Oregon. They struggled a little bit against Oklahoma in the second round. Hell, they struggled against UNC Greensboro in the second round. So they struggled against their first two opponents. They could have easily lost the Oregon game. They could have easily lost the Purdue game. Auburn came down to a Diakite shot from. Then again, here we go again. Clark, the freshman, very poised, didn't try to throw up some 30-footer. He got right to Diakite. Boom. He made the shot versus Auburn. I mean, everything they've done the past 4 games. They don't panic. They're poised. It comes down to the tutelage of their coach, Tony Bennett, who learned from his father, Dick Bennett. And these guys are really good in the shot clock situations. They don't panic. The last 10 seconds, they're perfectly fine. Last night was a really good example. Ty Jerome, Texas Tech can't give up a 3 there. Ty Jerome drives to the hole. Culver and a couple of Texas Tech defenders close in on him. Give him the layup.
Right.
Make it a free throw shooting contest. Instead, they collapse on Culver for some unknown reason. They're down 3. Only a 3 could hurt them. Then you give it out to DeAndre Hunter, the best player in this tournament. And by the way, they got that wrong. Kyle Guy was good, but he wasn't better than DeAndre Hunter the past few games.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hunter hit 3. And how do you make that mistake? I'm just shocked at Chris Beard, the Texas Tech coach, is gonna be up for some sleepless nights. Now, he'll be proud of his kids, and at Texas Tech there in Lubbock, they're gonna remember this for a long time. Finishing second place, I don't think there's any shame in finishing second place. They hold their heads high. They could have had it, but they're gonna have some sleepless nights on plays like that. Just let Ty Jerome lay the ball in. You gave it to DeAndre Hunter. Boom, hits the 3. You tied, and then on the other end, I'm shocked again. Jarrett Culver comes down the court. He hasn't hit any 20-footers all night, and he settles on his, a 20-something footer shot. Go to the hole. Put the pressure on the refs to make a call.
Yeah.
And then if you don't want to go to the hole, you see somebody coming over take the charge. Pull up and hit a nice little 10-footer. You don't have to settle. You're tied up in that situation. It's 68 all, I believe. You don't have to settle for a 22-foot shot, Jarrett. Go to the hole. Use your athleticism. And so I thought Jarrett Culver made a big mistake last night. He's a young kid. He's only, 20 years old. He's a sophomore. And I thought the better team won last night. Even though Texas Tech could have won that game, maybe should have won that game, the actual better team won last night. We talked about that yesterday. Ty Jerome and DeAndre Hunter. They have 2 NBA first-rounders. Texas Tech has 1. Okay? The better team won last night. The more poised team won last night. The little bit better coaching won last night. And that Texas Tech took bad shots. And Virginia, got to give them all the credit in the world.
Yeah, you are hitting the nail right on the head, like head there. And I got to echo everything you said. They should have just let the guy lay it up at the end of the game, and we would be talking a totally different story at this point. We would probably be saying, did Virginia give this game away after having a 12-point lead?
Yeah.
Especially with
Right.
their defensive side of the ball that they've shown all tournament. Which that brings me to my first point here. What did happen to that defensive side of the ball the last 10 minutes? Did they just get wore out, or did just obviously the buckets started to fall, like we've seen that, but what exactly happened? Did the defense get tired? Was there just a lapse of player effort at that point? Did Virginia be like, hey, we got this in the bag, we just got to kind of coast and we're champions? I don't think, I definitely felt like the effort was there. It's just something was just not lacking. Either I want to say the Illuminati, maybe they're like, hey, we have to have this over-under not be under 80 points. We need a better scoring game. And I actually tweeted during the game, it was 33-29 with 10 minutes left in the game, or 12 minutes left in the game. I'm like, is this the worst NCAA tournament ever? because the average fan does not like defensive battles of the defensive battles. We saw that in the Super Bowl. People are like, this is the worst Super Bowl ever. We need high scoring. We need high flying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like, I kind of wanted to echo that. I'm like, hey, is this the worst NCAA tournament ever? Because there's not 70 points being scored. There's not 80 points being scored. And then like clockwork, buckets started to fall. They started raining threes. I saw a stat at one point. Texas Tech had 7 made 3 points to only 6 2-point shots made. Take that, just let that wrap in, that they had 7 3-pointers made to just 6 6 2-pointers made. Mix my words up there, but you guys get what I'm saying. Like that is just crazy in my book. But I knew Texas Tech was going to lose that game when the game went into overtime. You saw their heads drop. They were mentally wore out. They were physically wore out, and it showed in the overtime. Virginia just wanted it more at the end of the day in the overtime spot there, and you know, all the props to Virginia. They are just the 6th team ever to lose in the round of 64 the next season to come and win the championship. So they are on a list of elite teams there. First championship in school history. All the good stuff is happening in Virginia. So Marcus, I want to ask you, do we have to kind of start looking at Virginia as a powerhouse team now? Because you know they've been doing this thing for 3 or 4 years now. I mean, they got a pretty good class coming in next year. They are going to lose a few guys here, but you know they are reloaded. They're going to be good again. Do we have to start thinking for Virginia as one of those top teams always now moving forward?
Well, listen, they have a great coach, so as long as they have that great coach, they're going to be in the thick of things. It all depends on recruiting. I mean, look, they're going to lose Jerome and Hunter. Those are big shoes to replace. I think Jerome and Hunter and Guy, I think, were responsible for like 22 of their 27 field goals in the second half or something like that. It was amazing. So that production
that they had 61 of the 81 points or whatever that had.
Yeah, I mean that's huge production. So whether or not they can stay in it, they have a great coach, and they're going to have to reload. And this is going to help them. I mean, you know, a kid coming out of high school, they're looking at Virginia, and they just won the national championship. You can't help but get good recruits on that, especially with the coach they have and everything. They're still going to be battling, you know, the North Carolina's, Dukes, and Florida State has a bunch of athletes all over the place. But yeah, I mean, listen, Texas Tech's effort was there. They just lost to the better team, and I hate to say that, because I mean Texas Tech had their chance. The better team would have lost last night, because this is a one and done situation. This isn't best of 7. I'll tell you right now, this was so competitive. When we talked about this before, how fun would this be? I know a lot of the country wouldn't like it because it'd be low scoring, but if this was a best of 7, Texas Tech would tie this thing up. It'd be 2-2 going to Virginia for Game 5.
Right.
I mean, this thing would probably go the distance maybe, unless Virginia could win on Texas Tech's home floor, which is possible because they were the more cooler team. Like I said, if that makes sense. They were calm. They were poised. They didn't panic. And Texas Tech took a bunch of bad shots. And part of that's Virginia's defense. I tell you one person that would have loved last night. I know you're probably watching Greg Popovich. I mean,
oh yeah.
You know, you talk about great defense. Then your offense, you spread you out. You can hit wide open threes. You can take it to the basket. I mean, Coach Popovich has to love the way Tony Bennett coaches and the way his team plays. And you got to give Virginia all the credit in the world. Texas Tech has nothing to hang their heads about. They did a yeoman's job to getting to the championship game, and Virginia was just the better team. And you know, to come full circle, answer your question, Virginia can be a powerhouse. It just depends on their recruits because they have the coach to do it.
Yeah. So let me go there with that. As a recruit, say you are a high school senior and you haven't signed your letter of intent anywhere yet, and you have offers from Kentucky, Duke, Virginia, and Texas Tech. Where would you go personally?
That's a great question. Well, it depends on probably. I'm a little more regional person, so
yeah.
I'm in Texas, so I'd probably go to UT. But I tell you what, if you're talking about if I'm the best player in the nation, or a top 10 player, I'd seriously look at Virginia too,
Yeah.
because you look at how they came back, the redemption story, and how those kids, never gave up, and the coach Bennett is. And if I was a heck of an athlete, I'd say, look, that's where Virginia's lacking. I'd look at Jerome and Guy and Hunter. Hunter's a pretty good athlete. He reminds me a little bit of OG from Toronto, but I think he can be even a better defender than OG. Um, but I guess I would seriously consider Virginia if I had my pick to go anywhere, because I'd look at Duke and Kentucky and say they always get the one and dones. They're always, you know what?
Yeah.
I'd let Coach Bennett coach me, and so I'd be a one and done as well. But I'd let Coach Bennett coach me. Let him get a few of these great one and dones like Kentucky and Duke have gotten over the course of the year. So I probably would, really consider Virginia.
Yeah, I kind of think you are thinking with the mature mind a little bit. I mean, like me as an athlete, I want to be the man on campus. I don't want to be overshadowed by football or baseball or anything like that. I think I would definitely pick Duke because once you walk on campus there, like at Duke, you are a Greek god. So you can't do anything wrong, and you are going to quite arguably get the best coach. So he's going to put you probably in the best position to win at the end of the day, I think. I mean, I could be wrong. Coach K could be the worst coach of all time. But I mean, I think his track record kind of proves for himself. Like he does well over there. So Marcus, yeah, go ahead.
Going back real quick to Virginia, they were the first team, I think, since 1959, I think California or something, to win the NCAA championship with the best field goal percentage. Points allowed defense.
Yeah.
So I think they held opponents like 59 points this year. That's incredible when you play in a league, and this kind of goes what you're talking about against the great players like, ACC has, and Virginia's schedule. The whole team's to like 58, 59 points every night, and they were number one in the NCAA in that. And so, I mean, they're the first team since like I said, Cal 1959 or something ridiculous. So yeah, so that's saying defense wins championships. I don't necessarily agree with it all the time, but you can make the case that defense won the championship here for Virginia and timely shots. Yeah.
Yeah, and quite possibly playing in. I mean, I've been dogging ACC all year. I'm not going to be biased about this. I do not like ACC basketball. I think there's better conferences out there. I think they're highly overrated. But playing North Carolina twice, Duke twice, who else? They played Florida State. Even trying to think of some other teams that they possibly played that were pretty. I mean, like ACC from top to bottom, from the the 8th or 9th team down up, they are pretty solid. Like you can easily walk on the court any given night and like get an L from those teams. And for them to only I think they lost 6 games all year, or sorry, 3 games all
35 and 3.
Yeah. So for them to only get beat 3 times all year in a tough conference like the ACC, and to play the way they played in the championship, props to them. The only asterisk that I've been hearing about them, and I didn't even realize this until they said it, Virginia is the first championship team since Indiana State to not play a 1 or a 2 seed on the road to the championship.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I don't know if we'll put an asterisk by it, but yeah, that's pretty amazing. They didn't have to play. They didn't have the Auburn schedule.
I'm not saying put an asterisk by it. I'm just saying that would be the only asterisk.
That's the only tiny little blemish that detractors might pick at. That's what you're saying. Yeah, I understand that. Well, it's not their fault. They played who they played. They didn't have to do the Auburn thing where they had to beat all these great programs. Right. But it was amazing about Virginia is they're not a juggernaut in the sense that they play the best basketball, but they're not a juggernaut in the sense that they could have lost to Oregon easily.
Yeah.
They struggled against Gardner-Webb. They struggled against Oklahoma for a little bit there.
They should have lost to
They
Purdue.
barely Auburn in the last second shot. Purdue could have easily beaten them, and then Texas Tech could have easily beaten them. But it's the team that was the more well coached, had the veteran players, and the team that didn't panic won the game.
Yeah, and just made a team with no McDonald's All-Stars gets to go to the White House and eat McDonald's. So just just wrap that around your head a little bit. So
Yeah.
on the other side of the break, Marcus, we are going to talk a little bit of NFL free agency. We're going to rank what you think the best moves are and the worst moves are so far this NFL free agency period. So catch us on the other side of the break.
All right, Mike. Yeah. Um,
Alrighty, guys. Welcome back to the RTF Sports Talk here. If you are listening to us on the YouTube live channel, it looks like it's being a little choppy there. I'm not for sure if the bit rate is going on there or whatever, but I am working on that as we speak here. Hopefully we'll get that working a little bit smoother for you guys, but please consider subscribing, comment below, share this with a friend, like it as well. If you listen to us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Speaker, Breaker, anywhere you get your podcast, you obviously are listening to us now. Consider subscribing to that podcast and also leave a ranking as well. Also, a big shout out to the Can't Get Right couple. We are giving a weekly shout out to them. They are part of the RTF Productions staff here, team here. They give marriage advice, kind of talk about their lives. It's actually really entertaining stuff, and they work very, very hard over there. They do 2 to 3 videos a week. They're on YouTube as well, and then they go to iHeartRadio is their main source of podcast. So just search the Can't Get Right couple. It's a little blue thumbnail with some blue writing. It's a pretty clever little logo they got going on there. But Marcus, the 2019 NFL free agency is starting to wind down here. The draft is coming up here in probably exactly 2 weeks here in a day or two. April 25th is when the NFL draft starts at Thursday night, primetime edition. But there's been some big off-season moves, and I just want to know what you think the biggest move so far has been in your eyes.
well, yeah, I mean, Antonio Brown going to the Raiders, that's a trade. I mean, that's huge. That's a big offseason move. I don't like Antonio Brown the person. I think he's somewhat of a punk, and considering what's going on with he and Juju Schuster right now,
Yeah.
Antonio Brown is showing his true colors. But that being said, we're not here to talk. I mean, I'm not talking about morals here, character. Antonio Brown's going to make the Oakland Raiders a lot better. That's just the bottom line. He's going to make Derek Carr better. He's a hard worker, even though I don't think his character is that good. But he is a hard worker, and so that was a good move. I love what the Kansas City Chiefs did with getting the Honey Badger. That was impressive. I watched every game the Honey Badger played last year for the Houston Texans. I'm a fan of the Houston Texans. He didn't play like the all-pro type that I saw a little bit of glimpses with the Arizona Cardinals, but he was above average there, Michael. And he was a team leader. He was a team captain, and he is an upgrade from whatever you guys had. He is an above average, an elite level athlete, and that makes plays. And if he can somehow get the form back, because he was coming off an injury going to Houston, if he can get that form back that he had with Arizona, Kansas City, that is a great signee for Kansas City, getting the Honey Badger there. And so let's see here. What else? The Cowboys. Bad teams sign a lot of people in free agency. So I see you hear a lot of Cowboy fans panicking. Oh, my God, what are they doing? My Cowboys are just sitting there. They're not doing anything. People, they don't have to do anything. They were one of the top 6 teams in the NFL last year.
Right.
Okay? You just stand pat. You sign your own players. You sign a couple of guys that you may think can come and help. The Dallas Cowboys, the Rams, teams like that, they don't have to make these big splashes in free agency. You have to re-sign your own players that are pretty good, and that's why Dak Prescott's won 32 games in the past 3 years, only second to Tom Brady's, because Dallas has really good players around him. Okay, so we don't have to make this. Dallas Cowboys don't have to make these big splashes in free agency. One good thing they did, I love, they signed Christian Covington, defensive tackle, out of Rice. and then he was with the Texans. That guy makes plays. That guy's a hard worker, and I can't wait to see that. You put him. He didn't want to play in the 3-4. He wants to be he wants to be in a 4-3 scheme, and you put Christian Covington with the Cowboys next to Malik Collins and Crawford. You have that 3-tackle rotation: Tyrone Crawford, Malik Collins, and Christian Covington. You've got a pretty good mix there. And so, yeah, and DeMarcus Lawrence, you had to sign DeMarcus Lawrence. To me, that's the biggest free agent acquisition, to keep your own player. DeMarcus Lawrence, D-Law, is the heart and soul of the Cowboys. If you ever watch him on the sidelines, he's engaged. He's not one of these players. He's in that J.J. Watt mold, Michael, of he's not going to get the big money and go, oh, okay, I'll just coast now for the rest of my career. Man, D-Law is engaged in the games. He's a team leader. Just watch the emotion when the offense is on the field there.
Yep.
I mean, this guy's a winner. D-Law is a winner. And I'll never forget watching his first game for Boise State. He went up against Michigan State's offensive line, and he dominated it as a junior college transfer. His first game with Boise State, he was on ESPN. My son and I watched it, and he wore number 8, DeMarcus Lawrence. And he destroyed the Michigan. He was in every play. And so that's why you knew I'm shocked he wasn't a first rounder. Dallas is very lucky that they got him in the early part of the second round.
Yeah.
So that's a big sign. Everybody wants to talk about the Cleveland Browns. Like I mentioned earlier, bad teams usually win free agency because they're bad teams. They have to sign a bunch of splash free agents.
Yeah.
Where the Cleveland Browns are a little different, Michael, is they have the quarterback to go with the poorest team. Whereas usually the bad teams have a subpar quarterback. Not in the case of the Cleveland Browns. They have an above-average quarterback in Baker Mayfield. Somebody I think is going to be the next Brett Favre. This guy Baker Mayfield is the real deal. He's not some fluke. There's a reason he was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. I don't like his character that much. The stuff he did in college, and he's getting in trouble with the law and all that. And then he had that thing with Kansas. I mean, dude, you're gonna let Kansas Jayhawks get in your head and all that. But you know what? I'm turned around on that because I've completely did a 180 on that. That's just him. I'll let him be him. He's just a great talent. So the Cleveland Browns did really well getting Odell Beckham, and they're going to be fun to watch. They're easily going to be 8-8. It's up to them. Listen, the NFL is an 8-8 league. It's who wins the close games. You're going to be 10-6, and who doesn't win the close games, they're going to be 6-10. And then if you're really bad, you go 4-12, and those are the teams that fire their coaches and all that. And if you win the close games, you can find yourself at 10-6, 11-5. And the Cleveland Browns, if they win close games, they could find themselves in that 10-6 area. I'll probably predict them to be 9-7, which would be a tremendous upgrade. But it wouldn't shock me at all because of their acquisitions and their quarterback that the Cleveland Browns aren't 10-6 or 11-5. So yeah, I mean, the free agency is fun. I can't wait for the draft. Let's get ready for this draft, and we'll see who improves their team with this draft. Also, another note, I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago or last week, getting George Iloka from the Vikings to replace Jeff Heath. I think that's the Cowboys' intention. Listen, Jeff Heath has made tremendous improvements over the years, but he is not, I don't think you would call him a top-notch safety. He's an average safety, but he's come from far. He's come from far. He was really below average, and he's turned himself into a decent NFL player. But that doesn't mean you still have to upgrade on that position. And George Iloka is not an all-pro either, but he is an upgrade from Jeff Heath. And we'll see how Iloka does. I don't really remember him in Minnesota, to be honest, but I watched him when he played with the Bengals. He was a pretty good football player. He's a big kid, 6'4" kid. I say he's like 29. He's 6'4", 230 pounds. He brings it. And so hopefully Iloka will replace Heath to go with Xavier Woods and have a decent safety combination. It'll be interesting to see who the Dallas they don't pick until 58th in the draft, so that's a long ways to wait. But they did it for a good reason. They got Amari Cooper. Yeah. I'd rather have Amari Cooper right now, Mike. I don't know if you agree with me, than the 27th pick in the draft, which we gave Oakland.
Yeah. Let's just stay right there with the Dallas Cowboys, like America's team there. And yes, I have to agree with you. I am okay with them giving away that first-round pick for Amari Cooper because he produced last season. He had 3 or 4 games when he had 2 or more touchdowns, and he was definitely a part of that playoff win, a part of that playoff run because we had no wide receiver core without Amari Cooper. The minute they brought Amari Cooper in, everything else opened up. Beasley was open underneath, all of a sudden we were able to run the ball for 800 yards a game. So that addition of Amari Cooper for that first round pick is definitely a very good move.
And Michael Gallup blossomed on the other side as well.
Yeah, because they could roll that safety over, they could shut him down because there was nobody else on that other side. I mean, you can say what you want. They didn't have anybody. The Cowboys were a non-playoff factor without Amari Cooper.
They were 3-5, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me go ahead and hit on your Browns. I mean, not your Browns, but the Browns in general.
Yeah.
I do not trust Odell Beckham Jr. I've said this kind of in a trolling way, but now I'm saying this in a serious way. Name me 3 times he has stepped up in a big game and done big things. The only playoff game he had in the New York uniform, he had like 8 drops. He had 3 or 4 catches for 30 yards and 8 or 9 drops. It was a horrible game. Odell Beckham is known for that catch against the Cowboys. What happened? 5 years ago now? 6 years ago. That is what made Odell Beckham at the end of the day. He's a good receiver. He is above average. He will put the Browns in that 8-8 for sure win-loss ratio there. I mean, the Browns, it's simple, the ball bouncing left or bouncing right from being 8-8 last year. So with the addition of a big name athlete that is going to draw double coverage, that is going to open up Landry Jones to be open. It's going to open up that running game to be open, just because of not because of Odell's talent, but his name, his like is not like he just brings attention, which helps the rest of the team. Now,
no, I agree with you on his what has he done in terms of he had the one playoff game, and then I don't like his character is another one. They go to like Cancun, they didn't even have a week off. Tony Romo and Jason Witten get a bunch of flack. They actually had a week off. They shouldn't have gone, by the way, in 2007. But at least they had a week off. Didn't those guys, Odell Beckham and those guys, and they went to Cancun or whatever without even a week off, like the night before, a couple of nights before the game.
Right.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and he caught very little slack about that, actually. So.
Yeah, no, but Odell Beckham is a dynamic talent. Eli Manning was deteriorating. I don't know what the Giants are doing there. So I think he's going to flourish. You've got Jarvis Landry on the other side. I think Odell Beckham, you got to have the safety over the top on him as well, and it's going to expand Baker Mayfield's game. And Jarvis Landry is going to get those one-on-one coverages like Michael Gallup's going to get this year with Amari Cooper on the other side, and Jarvis Landry is going to flourish as well. There might be games where Odell Beckham's, I said, he's not getting the ball, and Jarvis Landry's got 150 yards receiving. Well, you're not getting the ball because the safety's going over to you. So I think the Cleveland Browns are going to be the real deal. They win those close games. I'm talking 10-6.
Yeah. And just to add to that point there about the stats that you just rattled off, Odell Beckham may not have any catches or the ball to only throw him two times a game. It is the way he is going to react to that, how the Cleveland Browns are going to do moving forward. Is he going to be okay being a team player? Is he going to be okay being the second option? I think he will be the quote unquote #1 receiver on that team. But is he going to be okay being the second option when that safety does roll over and Landry Jones is open? Because think about it, in New York, he was the man. He didn't have anybody to. They didn't have anybody to hand the ball off to. They didn't have anybody to really dump over the middle. So I'm really looking forward to see if he actually can be a team player. Now let's roll over to my Kansas City Chiefs. I like the Honey Badgers signing, but then they started to release the players that had made a staple on that defense for so long. They released Eric Berry. Yes, he's been hurt the last couple years, but he battled cancer and then he had an Achilles injury. I really feel like this year he will be coming back strong, 100% healthy and ready to go. Hopefully he can find a team that would pick him up. That would be fantastic. And then they released Justin Houston, or sorry, they traded Justin Houston to the Colts. That's a great pickup for the Colts. Bad move for the Kansas City Chiefs because he was the one standout star on that defense all season. That for you night in and night out, and then you trade him, the heart and soul of your defense, the only one that showed up to the Indianapolis Colts when they were missing that one piece. They were missing a quote-unquote leader on that defense. That was a pretty good defense last year. Very, very young, but pretty good. That trade that the Colts got, I applaud that. Bad move by the Kansas City Chiefs. Go ahead.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked they let D Ford go. That's the one that's bothering me. Listen. Listen. If I was a Kansas City Chiefs fan, D Ford would always be in my outhouse because he lines up off sides, and then that caught Brady. Didn't Brady throw an interception?
Yes.
D Ford cost the Kansas City Chiefs a chance at a Super Bowl. Okay.
I blame the ref. The ref should have said, "Hey, man, you're lined up off sides," because they do it every play for that, except for that one play.
Right. But D Ford's got to know. D Ford's got to know, and you know, we'd be talking about Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. It'd be St. Louis and the Rams, like that great game they had Monday night. That's what I was looking forward to. But D Ford lined up offsides. You're right. The refs probably should have told him something. But these are grown men. I mean, they got to know where to line up. D Ford's a hell of a pass rusher. I'm shocked they let him go. D Ford's going to be sorely missed, even though he cost your team the championship or to play for a championship. I don't know. You can't replace that pass rushing. D Ford. Let me tell you something. In the draft with Jadeveon Clowney and D Ford, they were the two best pass rushers. And actually, D Ford went on record saying, "Hey man, I rushed a passer better than this guy. This guy's going to go #1 overall pick." Actually, Khalil Mack was in that draft.
Yeah.
So it was those three: Khalil Mack, D Ford, and Jadeveon Clowney. And I'll be honest with you, I thought D Ford, just from a pass rushing standpoint, was as good as those two were.
Yeah.
And D Ford, like I said,
I do agree.
he even said it. He said these guys are going to go #1 and #3, and I'm the best pass rusher. And he didn't go late, late until Kansas City picked him up. I'm shocked y'all let D Ford go. You know, I would just that's one of my ones. Houston's getting a little long in the tooth a little bit, but D Ford still has about 4 years of 10+ sacks. I'm shocked you let D Ford go. That was surprising.
Yeah, in the last 3 seasons, Kansas City has let their top defensive players go. Starting with Poe, traded him to the Falcons. Then we let D Ford go. Justin Houston and now Eric Berry all gone. And don't forget about Peters. That trade to the Rams last year.
That's true.
Peters was the best corner on that Kansas City team, and just because he had some off-field characters issues, they didn't want to deal with that. They shipped him to L.A. and we saw what happened in L.A. They were a really good team with Atiq Talib over there and Marcus Peters. Easily the best 1-2 punch on the cornerback side.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. Now going over to your Oakland trade, I do like Antonio Brown, and until Jordy Nelson decided to retire, I thought the addition of Antonio Brown and Jordy Nelson on the same field, that was going to leave them both open a lot, but Jordy Nelson decided to hang it up. So I'm not for sure how well Antonio Brown is going to go to a bad team, because let's face it, the Pittsburgh Steelers have always been that pretty good team. They've always, I don't think Antonio Brown has ever missed the playoffs in his career. Granted, the division was bad that they were in, but they've always been a pretty good 8-8 team. Now they're going to a Oakland Raider team that's horrible. They are a horrible team, and they've added a couple pieces. They've added 2 wide receivers. I can't think of the other wide receiver's name that they just signed. His name slipped in my mind. But they did sign another receiver. They also signed a safety as well. So they have to do a lot of work in the draft to keep Antonio Brown happy. One big thing that we're missing here is Le'Veon Bell to the Jets. As much as I do not like what Le'Veon Bell did by any means, I don't like that move to the Jets. The Jets are a horrible team. Now, the Jets as a franchise, that is a great pick, because then they can build around Le'Veon Bell. But the issue with that is he's already, what, 27 years old. Usually the life of a tailback ends after the age of 30. So you might have 4, maybe 5 years left in Le'Veon Bell to build a team around him to make a championship run, and I don't see that happening. Jets just stink at the end of the day.
Well, you know what? I'm going to disagree a little bit. I don't think they're that good, but I don't think they stink, if that makes any sense. Listen, I'm a believer in Sam Darnold, and they have Robbie Anderson there. They're not that bad. Quincy Enunwa is not number 81. He's not a bad receiver. I like Robbie Anderson, and I believe in Sam Darnold. I think that Le'Veon Bell made the right decision to go with a young team like that. Their offensive line's okay. Their problem is defense. Leonard Williams gets too many double teams.
Yeah.
Their former first-round pick out of USC. They have to address that defensive line in the draft, or they're going to address the pass rush. They're in a great position, the Jets, in the draft. They have the 4th pick in the draft. So basically, what you do, you could leave your draft on autoplay. My daughter could pick the Jets draft. Okay. Let me tell you how this happens. Kyler Murray's going to go number 1. So basically, that's good news for the Jets. There are 3 defenders in this draft that are going to be difference makers. Nick Bosa, Josh Allen, and Quinnen Williams. Okay, those are the top 3 defenders. So basically, after Arizona takes Kyler Murray, whoever Frisco takes, all you have to do, let's just say they take Bosa, or they're probably going to take Bosa. Now, Jets are sitting pretty at 3. You have Quinnen Williams or you have Josh Allen at your disposal. Now, you want to go defensive tackle and help Quinnen Williams out, and they're in the middle, you can go that route. If you want Allen from outside linebacker from Kentucky who gets to the pass rush, or who gets to the passer, then you have that situation. The Jets are going to have a really good pick with this number 3 pick to address that defensive problem. Like I said, the Jets offensively, I think, are going to be much improved just with adding Le'Veon Bell. I'm a believer in Sam Darnold. They're going to help themselves defensively in this draft, and it starts with the number 3 overall pick. It'll be Quinnen Williams, or it'll be Allen from Kentucky, Quinnen Williams from Alabama. That's where they got to go. It should be a defensive draft for the Jets, and I think the Jets will be back up in there in a couple of years. I'm not completely soured on them. I think they can win 6, 7 games, maybe even 8 games.
Yeah, and also what helps the Jets here is Tom Brady is aging. You know, he probably does only have a couple years left in the tank, and then at that point they could easily be the top dogs in that division here, because the Patriots are still going to be the Patriots even without Tom Brady, I think, but they're easily going to it makes it a little bit easier, I think.
I can't wait to see the Patriots play a full 16-game season without Gronk. I actually still think he's going to come back if they're like 10-4 or something, or they're going to make a playoff run. If he hasn't partied too much or gotten out of shape, I think they'll call him to come back. It's real interesting. They got the 32nd pick overall. All the experts have Irv Smith, the tight end from Alabama, going to New England with that 32nd pick. I actually think that's one of the ones that's on the money. If they were to get Irv Smith with that 32nd pick, I think that would do wonders for Tom Brady.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that later, like right after the break here. But on the other side of the break here, I want to talk about the worst pickups in free agency. So guys, sit back and relax and stay tuned right after these messages.
Where are you going? Worst pickups? Which?
Alrighty, guys. Welcome back to RTF Sports Talk here. Sorry to cut you off, Marcus. Here we're having a little off-camera talk there, but you can go ahead and let the people know what you're thinking.
Oh no! We were just about to talk about the bad news, the bad free agency moves. I know you had a suggestion on one of your bad free agency moves. Go ahead, Michael. You were telling me.
Yeah, one of the worst moves I think I've seen all offseason was a trade from the Chicago Bears, their running back Jordan Howard, to the Philadelphia Eagles. What are they thinking? Jordan Howard had a great season with the Bears. They need a solid running game to take pressure off Mitchell Trubisky. I don't think Mitchell Trubisky is going to duplicate what he did last year, so they need to rely on that running game. So by them trading off their tailback and not picking anybody up, are they hoping that they get a running back in the second or third round in the draft? I don't know. I don't know what their draft strategies are, but right now their strategy of cutting their, or not cutting, but trading their tailback, Jordan Howard, to the Eagles is definitely a head scratcher. It's a great pickup by the Eagles. Don't get me wrong there, but for them to make that trade like that, and they got a 6th-round pick like out of that trade. I definitely think he was worth a little bit more than a 6th-round pick, but a 6th-round pick for Jordan Howard that produced for you a lot last year. That's a real head scratcher there.
Yeah, I have no idea what they're doing with this, and I'm a believer in running backs are a dime a dozen, so you can pick one here, it doesn't really matter that much, but not in this situation. Jordan Howard was a unique talent. I mean, he's like a poor man's Earl Campbell. The guy could run over you, and then you had a hard time catching him in the open field. He produced for them. So, I mean, Tariq Cohen, that is a third down back. He's not an everyday down back. So I have no idea what the Bears are doing in that situation. Just to get a 6th-round pick was pretty amazing. I don't know why you'd get rid of Jordan Howard. And then on the flip side of that, why would you make the Eagles better? That's your competition to get to the Super Bowl. I'm not making the Eagles better by giving them Jordan Howard. So if I was going to trade him, it'd be to an AFC team or something like that. I'm sure there's an AFC team out there.
And the Eagles beat you in the 1st round. So you definitely don't want to make them better.
Yeah, that's just I'm sure there's an AFC team that would have given the Bears a better 6th-round pick. Maybe there's some underlying issue there that he's not following team rules. That's got to be something to it. But Jordan Howard, that's the head scratcher of the offseason. Just giving him to the Eagles. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too much into the good picks here, but we kind of skimmed over our Cowboys like a tad bit. Yeah, we touched on Amari Cooper during the season, but we forgot about Randall Cobb. They pick up Randall Cobb from the Packers. They signed him to a pretty cheap deal. I think it was like $5 million or something.
Yeah, $5 million.
Like that. But that even adds another dynamic to that team, 100%.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah.
I mean,
go ahead.
He's an upgrade. He's an upgrade from Beasley. Okay, so that if Randall Cobb can stay healthy, the Cowboys' offense. Let me just tell you something. The Cowboys' offense should be smoking next year. I mean, of course, they're going to have the ground game with Ezekiel Elliott, play action pass, and all that stuff. Let's get a little more creative, Jason Garrett. Let's throw away that jumbo package on 4th and 1 that didn't fool the Rams at all and didn't fool anybody that was watching. If you're going to have all these weapons,
called that play a mile away.
Yeah, it's just stupid. Listen, Gallup's a heck of a talent. You're going to have Gallup and Cooper and Witten's coming back and Randall Cobb. Are you kidding me? I mean, Dallas should be leading the league in time of possession, offensive efficiency, everything that you can think of. Dallas is right there. Next year, their free agent acquisitions have been pretty decent. Like I said, we talked about George Iloka replacing Jeff Heath and Christian Covington coming in there from the Texans to go along with Tyrone Crawford and Malik Collins. Dallas should be sitting pretty. I mean, their draft basically is just for fun, to be honest. I mean, they need depth at linebacker. They need depth at maybe safety. But they start with the 58th pick in the draft, and they don't have a glaring need. If you tell me, I think all 22 starters are solid. They don't have this, oh, my God, we need this, we need that. I think everybody coming back is solid.
I think what the Cowboys need to probably address is depth on the line. They've had a couple injuries on the line the last couple years, and it's definitely hindered their success just a tad bit. So if I was a Cowboys GM, that's kind of, I think that would be the one emphasis, a point there. But the linebacker is also a good point here. Sean Lee is obviously over the hill, but we did pick up Leighton Vander Esch last year, and I think he is a better Sean Lee. So
absolutely. I
probably get a little bit of hate on that from those Cowboy lovers. I actually have a Sean Lee hat. I mean, I'm a big Sean Lee fan, but for me to say that, that Vander Esch has a big upside. And another head scratching trade here. Ryan Tannehill to the Tennessee Titans. I'm not for sure what the Titans are doing here. They already had a mediocre quarterback in Mariota, and I'm not for sure if they'll think Ryan Tannehill change the scenery will make him improve. If the thought of a backup taking Mariota's spot is going to improve Mariota, I don't know, but that's another head scratching trade that I'm kind of worried about.
I'm gonna tell you exactly what Tennessee's doing. Tennessee's tired of if Marcus Mariota goes down, their season's over.
Right.
Okay, so you gotta, because their backups have been absolutely horrific behind Mariota. So now you have a guy in Tannehill that if Marcus Mariota gets hurt, you still expect to win games. He's adequate enough to win games. So that was probably their thinking. Let me just keep it real with you. I would have loved Tannehill on the Cowboys. If Rain Dakota Prescott goes down, Cooper Rush, we may as well go to the movies when the Cowboys are on. Because Cooper Rush isn't the answer. I'd actually rather see Mike White in there than Cooper Rush and see how Mike White does in the preseason. You need a solid backup quarterback, and I think Tannehill's a good backup quarterback where you just kind of keep the ship afloat. And I think that's what Tennessee's thinking was. So I like the move. And also, I mean, it's going to push Mariota. Mariota's got to say, oh, man, they got Ryan Tannehill. His stats might or maybe not be as good as mine, but they're right there. That might push Marcus Mariota to even play better. But, if Mariota goes down, you insert Tannehill, and you should not skip a beat, and that's their thinking.
Okay, I see what you're saying there. Like, maybe I was being closed-minded a little bit on that, on that trade, because I thought they were trading for Ryan Tannehill to come in there and be a starter and kind of replace Mariota. That's kind of was my thinking, on that backside. But I do like your backup.
Well, no, you're right.
Like
it could be that way. You're right, Michael. It could be that way because Mariota's always freaking hurt. So you got to cover yourself some kind of way. Yeah. They could want him to come in there and take over from Mariota. Mariota's always injured, and then the season's over.
Right.
So I think that it was a good move. But you're right though. You thought that he was coming there to try to replace him. He could. We'll see what happens in training camp. We got a long training camp to go to.
Yeah. I mean, and the offseason workouts just started here as well. So go ahead.
And real quick, going back to the real quick on the Cowboys, just real quick, how that we was talking about, they needed linebacker depth. They lost Damian Wilson, who was the Big Ten best tackler in 2015 for Minnesota. He went to your Kansas City Chiefs to join Anthony Hitchens, who who's also the Big Ten leading tackler at Iowa the year before Damian Wilson was at Minnesota.
Yeah.
So Kansas City now you have the two linebackers that led the Big Ten in tackles like 2014 or 2013 and 2015. So the Damian Wilson signing is a good underrated signing for Kansas City Chiefs. That's why Dallas needs linebacker depth.
Yeah, and that was definitely overlooked because it kind of happened under the radar a tad bit.
Yeah.
Because the Kansas City Chiefs were cutting Houston and Ford and Barry, and then all of a sudden, boom, this guy comes in. So, as a fan, I'm still upset about them trading Ford and Houston, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I would be too.
Yeah. Think about a couple teams here. A team as a whole. Who do you think who was the best offseason, who was the worst offseason as a team, not as players going to teams, but teams as in general? I think my top of the list is got to be the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, I really think they did add depth to the wide receiver position, and they also they signed a DN from the Kansas City Chiefs that he should do really, really well. This name slipped on my mind. I had it wrote down. I don't know where that went. But them making the splash in the offseason as they did, they probably get the highest grade. The lowest grade is got to be the Miami Dolphins. I'm not for sure what they did. They trade off their quarterback. They didn't pick anybody else up. Any big names, big splashes. So Miami's got to be my lowest grade. Browns got to be the highest grade. What are your thoughts?
Now, I agree with your Browns, and my highest grade could even be Antonio Brown going to the Raiders. I think that's going to help them out. Derek Carr needed that, even if they're going to struggle on the other side, and Antonio Brown's going to see his fair share of double teams, obviously, but that's going to help Derek Carr.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Baltimore Ravens lost Eric Weddle and Earl Thomas. They weren't focusing on Earl Thomas But as soon as they lost Eric Weddle, the Baltimore Ravens, they went straight to Earl Thomas and gave him a big contract. I don't think he thought he was going to get.
No.
And Eric Weddle, I think it works out for both teams. Eric Weddle's going to be a heck of a player down there for the Rams. They need that veteran leadership. Eric Weddle is borderline Hall of Famer to me. I mean, that guy's produced year in and year out, like a Rodney Harrison type. And then now you replace Baltimore replaced Eric Weddle. They said no, we need that kind of player in our secondary, and they replaced him with Earl Thomas. I think that was huge for the Ravens to pick up Earl Thomas. If he can come back to any kind of his form that he was a couple of years ago, he's coming off the injury. That was a good pickup by the Ravens getting Earl Thomas, and Eric Weddle going to the Rams is going to help them out. Veteran leader back there that they missed playing the Patriots. Eric Weddle would have done pretty well playing against the Patriots. The veteran leadership and roaming the field the way he does.
Yeah, and that's kind of a head scratcher too. Why did the Ravens release Weddle the way they did? Like I kind of wonder if there was some type of inner office actions happening, because Eric Weddle did say that he wanted to be a Baltimore Raven. So I'm not for sure. Something happened. Did he make somebody mad?
I don't get that either.
Daughters, I don't know.
Sometimes teams just think that you can't play anymore, and I think Eric Weddle's getting long in the tooth, and they figured that they're going to release him, and they figured that, they'll sign him. They'll sign a young player, a few years younger than him. But what happened was Eric Weddle came on the cheap. He signed for like 2 years, $11 million with the Rams, and then they broke the bank kind of for Earl Thomas. Yeah, he's 5 years younger, but they're going to pay a lot of money to that safety position now, when they could have just kept Weddle for a couple more years. At a cheap price, like $5 million per year, but they went in a different direction, and we'll see how it works. I think it worked out well for both teams, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Rams got that much better in that secondary when they already were pretty potent as is.
Right.
When they're healthy. That's the biggest knock on the Rams, is they can't stay healthy, and they're all. I kind of feel like the Rams defense is built to win now, so I'm kind of intrigued to see how the Rams will do this year, even though they'll still only be the second best team in the AFC behind the Kansas City Chiefs. So before we move over to the association, any final thoughts on the free agency? You as a Cowboys fan, as a Houston fan, who do you want to see come to your teams to make yourself better? Anybody?
Houston has struggled on the offensive line. That's no secret. I think they had one of the worst offensive lines in football. You look at Deshaun Watson. I think he was contacted like near 300 times or something ridiculous. I mean, he was touched. That's absolutely ridiculous. Can you imagine your quarterback getting touched by the opposing team? Even though they didn't get a sack, they just made him hurry and get the ball out. Being touched 300 times on dropbacks, your offensive line is horrible.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of injuries. Central Henderson is going to come back this year. Hopefully, he'll man that right tackle position. They signed Matt Khalil in the offseason. Hopefully, he'll be the left tackle. Zach Fulton of your Chiefs, they signed. He was in and out of the lineup. He's a good player. He's not this unbelievable all-pro player, but hopefully he comes back from injury for the Houston Texans. Their offensive line is the reason the Colts beat them. Not only are the Colts pretty good, but the offensive line for the Houston Texans held them back. And so they've got to get better on that offensive line. They have the 23rd pick in the draft. I see a lot of mock drafts have an offensive lineman going there. That's probably going to be the case. You look at Cody Ford from Oklahoma. You look at a bunch of different players there. But yeah, Houston Texans got to just, the Matt Khalil was a good signing.
Yeah,
we're talking about free agency.
Very good signing.
Hopefully he'll get back from his injury. He'll man that left tackle spot. And so we'll see what happens. But, going back as far as back to the Cowboys, they didn't really need to do a bunch of changes. Bad teams, they try to make splashes in free agency. Cowboys are not one of those bad teams that had to make big splashes in free agency. I like what they did. Cowboys also re-signed was it Fleming? He's our swing tackle. The development of Connor Williams, that's a big offseason thing. The development of Connor Williams, our second-round pick last year, 50th overall from the University of Texas, that guy's got to get bigger, stronger in the weight room, and we'll see how he fares, coming up into this Cowboys season. So My Texans and my Cowboys. I think they're going to be okay. I think we had the power rankings the other day. I think what was there? They were like eighth or ninth or something like that. That's about right where they should be. Although I think we talked about that. The Cowboys I think are a little better than the Texans right now as it's currently constructed. I think the Cowboys should be in that top 10 and Houston right around the 10 range.
Yeah, and like I want to backpedal a tad bit. I just got an alert on my phone here that the Jets are talking with Alabama's O-line Joanna Williams, and they are talking about taking him as their first pick in the draft. So if the Jets are going offensive line in the draft and not defense, that could kind of be a head scratcher as well. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that. Yeah, no, that's a little puzzling. I mean, when you have a chance, you're talking about the Jets. You have a chance to get Quinnen Williams or Josh Allen, guys that get to the passer. I mean that's invaluable. I mean, I understand. Look, Jonah Williams is a good tackle from Alabama. He's moving up the charts there, but that's a little puzzling to me. I would go with solidifying my defense. You got Le'Veon Bell. Listen, you can get offensive linemen later on in the draft. When you have a chance to get a dynamic talent like the Khalil Macks, like the Jadeveon Clowney, like the D Fords, you have that chance to get Josh Allen, who is by all accounts is the best outside pass rusher in a 3-4 system. You go ahead and you take Josh Allen. If you want to bolster your defensive line, you take Quinnen Williams. The guy can play multitude of positions in the front, and so I that's a little head scratcher for me. I don't get that one. You can get an offensive lineman. You can get a tackle later on in the draft.
If you want to go offensive line, make a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs. We would love to take Josh Allen, and then you can, and then you can swing down to our 28th pick or whatever that like we're at, and like you can get your offensive line lineman. Let us get Josh Allen. I would gladly take that trade. We'll even give you a second round pick too.
yeah, that's possible. Actually, the way the math works is Kansas City, if they move from 29, you have to give up that 29th pick or 28th pick. The way the math works in the NFL draft, because I used to be a part of it, you'd have to give up a next year's number 1 to get Josh Allen. I don't know if you want to go that steep, but if you think Kansas City Chiefs are going to be great, right? You're picking out your 28, 29 every year anyway, 30, 31, 32.
Right.
So I'd give up the next year's first round to take Josh Allen.
And our defense is what's hurting. Like our offense is pretty well set. We could use some help on the offensive line. As I feel every team can always add depth to the offensive line. So I feel like that's a broken record over and over and over. But the defense is what hurt Kansas City last year. We could jump up to that 4th pick and get Josh Allen. I would give up two
the 3rd pick. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So, but Marcus, we're going to go ahead and break real fast. NBA, the association comes back on tonight. They did take off last night in respect of college basketball. So most teams have 2 games left. The season ends Wednesday. So we're going to ask, what are your must-watch games tonight and tomorrow, right after the break. Alrighty guys, welcome back to RTF Sports Talk. I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but if you're new here watching us on the YouTube channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe below. Give us a hashtag and your team name. As we started the show earlier with a little bit of baseball talk, I want to give you scores of some Royals games every show, every day that they play. And if you want me to talk about your baseball team, comment below. If you're listening to us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc., anywhere you get your podcast, consider subscribing to that as well and leave a ranking, preferably 5 stars. If it's not 5 stars, let us know why so we can improve the show each and every day. But as always, I am joined with Marcus, the freak on the Twitter machine. And Marcus, the NBA is starting to wind down or ramp up, however you want to look at it. I think it's ramping up because I think playoff basketball is amazing basketball. But tonight, the association comes back with some big games here. Some of the notable games that are happening, like you have Charlotte versus Cleveland, Memphis versus Detroit, Boston at Washington, 76ers and Heat, New York, Chicago, Toronto, Minnesota, Golden State, New Orleans, Phoenix versus Dallas. That's kind of a scratch-off game. Nobody's going to watch that. They have Denver Nuggets at Houston. Denver Nuggets at Utah Jazz, Houston at Oklahoma City, Portland at LA. On these Tuesday night games, Marcus, what two games are you going to circle saying that you want to watch because that's going to be the most intriguing and make you learn about that team more going into the playoffs and or the off season? What are your thoughts?
Well, I tell you what, it's a huge night in the association. It's like a clear up night. Well, some things are going to come clear after the night. Midnight, we'll know a little bit more about the seedings and stuff like that. Houston is still battling Denver for that second seed. So you have a situation where Houston goes in there and beats OKC, right? And then Utah beats Denver. Then you're talking about Houston's going to be the number 2 seed, and that's what they want. They don't want in the second round have to go to the altitude to start off.
Right.
Assuming Denver wins that first round matchup. So Houston wants that number 2 seed. That's huge to watch. And I tell you something that's really underrated to watch, and it doesn't even affect anything until the NBA Finals. Toronto is only 1 game ahead of the Warriors. So let's just say Toronto and the Warriors get into the finals.
Yep.
Toronto has to beat Minnesota tonight to ensure themselves of a better record than the Golden State Warriors. So this Toronto tonight, this isn't a fun night where, hey, let's let the 11th and 12th man play tonight. They've got to really hunker down and beat the Minnesota Timberwolves so they can ensure themselves at least a game ahead or at least a tie with the Warriors, and they win the tiebreaker with the Warriors. So Golden State actually still playing for something because they're hoping Minnesota beats Toronto, and then Golden State's still playing for something. They got to go to New Orleans, so they're going to play all out. Because can you imagine the finals in Toronto? If they were to lose to Minnesota, they would have to start out. The Raptors would have to start out at Oracle in the NBA Finals. They don't want that, and all they have to do to avoid that is to beat the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight. So I think that's an underrated game. Nobody's really talking about. Toronto has to beat Minnesota to have a better record than the Warriors. But yeah, absolutely. Just as far as looking for my Spurs tonight, we need Houston to beat OKC. Just so we can try to move up to the 6th spot, so it would be nice to get to that 6th spot. But we'd also want, as a Spurs fan, we'd also need Utah to beat Denver, so we would face Denver in that first round because Denver would then move to the 3 spot. So there's a lot of jockeying for position here. But to answer your question, those 2 games, Houston OKC is a big one to me. Denver Utah underrated, and the Toronto Golden State thing, they're not playing each other, but they're playing for position of who would have home court in the finals. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, that is some great insight on that game. I did not realize that Toronto still had a chance to get the best record in the NBA. So I will kind of passively.
No, Michael, they're just trying to get the set. They're just trying to stay ahead of the Warriors. Like Milwaukee's got the best record.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Toronto's just got to ensure themselves of having the 2nd best record just to stay ahead of the Warriors. Yeah.
Right.
You got
the biggest game that I'm circling on this, on tonight's slate, is Houston at OKC. The ball is kind of in Oklahoma City's hands. Who do they want to play in the first round? Do they want to play Houston in the first round, or do they want to play Denver in the first round? So I mean, they can kind of pick and choose who do they want to play. I mean, there's very rarely do we hear about tanking on a playoff team,
right?
But they could easily tank this game and kind of pick and choose who they want to play.
Absolutely. You're going to find out tonight, Michael. Like if OKC goes real hard at Houston, and they try to play that thing lights out, they want to. What they're telling Houston is, we want to avoid you. We want Denver.
Yeah.
So if OKC beats Houston, their target area is Denver. They want to maintain that 6th seed, and if they beat Houston, Denver stays at 2. Actually, you know what? I have that wrong. OKC, if they win tonight, they're what they're saying is they want to play Houston.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So if OKC wins tonight, they're sending a message to Houston: we can beat you right now, and we want to play you. So it'd be interesting to see if OKC let up a little bit and said, you know what, we'd rather play Denver. That's interesting to watch tonight.
Yeah, and then on the flip side of that coin, Houston's kind of the same way. Like if they come out and play hard, they don't want to play Oklahoma City in the first round. They want that 2nd seed and they want to play the Spurs in that first first round
Yeah,
game.
yeah. As
So
far as from Houston perspective,
yeah,
Houston's trying to go balls out on that game and win that game because they want to get to the second seed. So Houston's going to play this game like a playoff game. They're really going to try to win this game tonight to get that second seed because what I just mentioned earlier, you don't want to start out your playoff series if Denver's 3 and Houston's 2, it starts out in Houston. If Houston drops this game and they let Denver get the second seed, you're starting your second round series in Denver in Mile High. You don't want to do that. So Houston's going to go balls out this game and try to beat OKC to get that second seed.
yeah, and then like one other matchup now that has it's kind of intriguing to me still is that Miami Philly game. Miami only has like a 5% chance of making the playoffs. Yeah. They have to have some help. But I wonder if Wade just puts the team on his back and he has a 40, 50 point game, trying to make the playoffs like his final year. That's kind of another game to watch as well. Simply because I believe that is Wade's last regular season game is tonight versus Philly. So I definitely see him doing a Kobe-esque type of game, shooting lights out, scoring 40, 50, 60 points. And it would be some type of crazy story for them to make the playoffs because they do only have like a 5% chance of making the playoffs. But I don't want the Heat to make the playoffs because I don't want to see Wade get swept in the playoffs.
That's true.
Yeah,
and I think that 5% went down to like a 3%. I mean, it's really it's really bad. You're right there. I want to see this game. I'd like to see Dwayne Wade go off tonight. It's fun for his career, and I think what better opponent than Philadelphia, who's got a lot of great players. And this ought to be fun to watch. Wade's final game. It'll be Dirk's final game tomorrow, which I don't think will be on tomorrow, but Dirk's probably final game will be at San Antonio. That'll be fun to watch to see if he goes off and what the Spurs do to congratulate him on a great NBA career, which it has been a great NBA career.
Yeah.
But to watch D Wade here in Miami, his final game, that's going to be nice to see. I hope he at least gets 30. If he gets 40, wow.
Yeah.
And that's fun to watch.
It would almost be crazy just to see him to have a career high night, Be like, hey, Wade, you still got some left in the tank. Come on back next year. But as they say, you have to know when to hang him up.
Yeah.
Say that again. You're cutting out a little
bit.
No,
like Kobe's final game, he got like 60 or something.
Yeah. I mean, it would just be awesome because I've been watching Wade as long as I can remember watching the association. He's been a staple there. I was kind of heartbroken when he got traded to the Bulls there for like a little while. Like I felt like he should just always be in a Heat uniform.
Yeah, that's awkward. That was awkward, right? Looking at him in a Bulls jersey, even though he's from Chicago. Yeah. So what?
Yeah.
That was awkward, wasn't it?
It was a very awkward 2 months that he was there or whatever. Like he was even there for very long. But moving on to the last night of the NBA regular season, looking at some games here on April 10th, which we will not be on the show. We'll be back on Thursday. But some notable or the matchups that are happening on Wednesday night, you have Indiana at Atlanta, Miami versus Brooklyn. So I did lie. Heat does play one more game. It's his final home game, I should say. Magic versus Charlotte, Detroit versus New York, Chicago versus Philly, Golden State versus Memphis, OKC versus Bucks, Dallas, San Antonio, Minnesota, Denver, Utah, LA, Clippers, and Kings versus Trailblazers. Out of those 10 games there, which one are you circling that you want to watch?
Well, the obvious answer would be my Spurs. But the funny thing about it is it's going to be Dirk's final game. Let's hope. I hope he doesn't come back. I don't like to see superstars get 7 points per game.
Yeah.
Like, I understand, he's an icon. He's still. Hey, look, I understand that thinking, hey, play as long as you can play. That's fine. I agree with that. But just from a fan's perspective, I hate watching Akeem Olajuwon played with Toronto the final couple years. Isn't that crazy? That just looks dumb. And your career numbers go down because you're not the same player. You're averaging 7.
It's kind of like Vince Carter. Like I feel like he's played on every NBA team now. Like he's bouncing team to team.
Right, Mike. I don't mind Vince Carter playing. It's just weird on who he's choosing to play with.
Yeah.
And,
Well, he's in Atlanta now, isn't he, or something?
I mean, no, I feel like that ring chaser gets a bad connotation. You know, oh, I'm a ring chaser, right?
Yeah.
But don't be a ring chaser when you're in your 20s. It's okay to be a ring chaser when you're near 40. Vince Carter should be on a team that should be at least, you know, a fourth or fifth seed or something that he has a chance to play in the playoffs. He's playing on teams that have absolutely no chance of doing anything in the playoffs. And I just find that weird that he plays for these terrible teams. But going back to what we're talking about, Dirk's going to have his final game against San Antonio. It'll be interesting to see what San Antonio, how they roll out the red carpet for him in his final game for his illustrious career. But the funny thing about this game is the Spurs have to win to avoid the A seed. All the Spurs have to do is win, beat the lowly Mavericks, and they avoid the A seed. They're going to be either 6 or 7 depending upon what happens tonight. And so the Spurs have to play hard still Wednesday night to avoid the A seed. That's going to be intriguing. Just looking at some of the other games, see, the thing of it is tonight is such a huge night that some of these games for Wednesday may not mean anything,
right,
because of what will transpire on tonight.
They may mean something now, but you're
like,
exactly
just
right.
for instance, Golden State could have to beat Memphis on Wednesday, just to ensure themselves of having a better record than Toronto if Toronto loses tonight to Minnesota. But if Toronto wins, then Wednesday night Golden State, I might suit up for Golden State. That's how bad.
Right.
That's how bad. They're going to let D-League players play for Golden State that final night, but it depends on Toronto playing Minnesota tonight. So a lot of things we don't know a lot about Wednesdays because Tuesday still has some ramifications that will affect Wednesday.
Right. Yeah, and kind of looking at it hindsight here, I don't really see a lot of games that jump off the screen at me. Yes, I would love to see Oklahoma City versus the Bucks in a full strength game, but at that point, Oklahoma City is going to probably have the 6th seed locked in. The Bucks had the 1 seed locked in, so they'll be playing a bunch of substitutes as well and getting rest.
Yeah. Oklahoma City might be playing for something that night, but we know Milwaukee won't be. So it'll be a game where I probably won't watch too much. Milwaukee's, D-League players will be getting in that game.
Yeah,
People that haven't played all year. Yeah.
Yeah, and so really the only game that I'm circling that might have any type of playoff ramifications is Miami Heat versus the Nets. The Heat could still possibly have a chance to make the playoffs if they beat the Sixers tonight and then they beat the Nets just as well. Because I don't think the Nets will be playing for anything either because they do have the 6th seed locked up in the East. So will teams kind of feel sorry for Wade and just kind of let him monkey his way into the playoffs somehow, some way? I doubt it because I think Orlando wants that final 8 spot there. But then you look at that Orlando and Charlotte game. Charlotte still has an outside chance of making the playoffs as well. I think they're like a 20% currently right now to make the playoffs. And the easiest way for them to make the playoffs is to beat Orlando. How you get in is you beat the teams that are ahead of you, and hopefully they lose. Those are the only 2 games that really jump off the page at me right now. Maybe Utah Jazz and Clippers, a possible,
Well, that could mean something. Yeah, Michael. The Utah Jazz Clipper game could mean something Wednesday night, but it depends on what happens tonight, whether or not that Wednesday game means something. So it's a wait and see game now.
Yeah. So, like I said, guys, the association wraps up Wednesday night. We are not doing a Wednesday show here for the next couple months because of spring football for myself, my high school team here. So we'll be back Thursday. The NBA playoffs will be set at that point in time. And Marcus, I think on Thursday we are going to either break down the East or break down the West, kind of leave the ball in your court. Then we'll do the opposite team or the opposite conference on Friday and go from there. But guys, we're going to take one more break from you guys, and then we're going to go back to the Amateur Association, also known as college basketball. Just talk a little bit more championship game. Was this the best championship game ever? Worst championship game ever? We'll let you guys know our thoughts right after the break.
Is this the last segment, right? Okay.
All right, guys, welcome back to RTF Sports Talk. If you are watching us on YouTube Live, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon. We are live every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at 1:45 p.m. on the East Coast, except for today because Microsoft decided to push some updates out to the computer, and I had to wait for them to go through. If you're listening to us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, etc., consider subscribing to those podcasts as well. Leave us a ranking as well. It helps the show grow. We are doing this out of the kindness of our hearts to give you guys some insights, and we can only help you help us by sharing this content, subscribing as well. So Marcus, I want to go back to the championship game last night. If you guys missed previous segment here, first part of the show, if you've been living under a rock, not in the sports world, Virginia did beat Texas Tech last night to win the NCAA men's basketball tournament. They did go into overtime, just the eighth time ever in a championship game that the game went into overtime. So with that being said, Marcus, we saw the game go from a kind of extreme bad, quote unquote. You know, it was a 29-24 halftime score to a 85-79 score in overtime for Virginia to win the game. So, looking at past championship games here, how do you think this game ranks in the all-time ranking of the games?
You know, it's right there. I mean, that's possibly top 10. Everybody lives in the moment. They'll say, "Oh, it's the best thing I've ever seen." Next year, if it comes down to the wire, a lot of people will say, "Oh, that's the best one ever." You know what I mean? So
yeah.
we tend to have short-term memory. When I was a kid, I just remember Keith Smart hitting the jumper to win a championship. Indiana beat Syracuse, and Keith Smart, that was a terrific shot. I mean, was it right over Sherman Douglas, or I'm forgetting who was on the Syracuse team. And Derek Coleman was there as a freshman. He had 19 boards that game. Derek Coleman was a heck of a player. Syracuse was probably the better athletes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Over Indiana, but hey, Keith Smart hit that jumper. That was huge. Michael Jordan hitting the jumper for North Carolina in 1982 as a freshman to beat Georgetown. That's a huge moment. I'll even go to the girls' game. The girls' game have had some big moments the past couple of years. Charlotte Smith in 94, North Carolina hit a three-pointer to win the game, and by 1 point for the girls. I mean, we're talking about last-second shots, great games. This one's right there, though, because it didn't have a last shot to win the game, but it had a last shot to tie the game. And it was just a terrible job by Coach, and I hate to even say this because they've been fabulous the whole tournament and throughout the year pretty much. But it was a bad job by Coach Beard and those guys, Jarrett Culver. They swarmed to Jerome. They should have just given Jerome the layup. And you're still down one, and then you play a free throw shooting contest. And you have good free throw shooters. You can't tell me that Mooney and Moretti and Culver aren't going to go to the line and knock those down. I trust that more than having to get Jarrett Culver to shoot some game-winning shot from a fadeaway or something like that. So it should have been a free throw shooting contest, and it wasn't. They let Ty Jerome just go right to the rim, and he could have laid it in, but he threw it out to DeAndre Hunter, and DeAndre Hunter nailed the three to make it 68-68. That was just bad defense on Texas Tech's part. But that being said, Texas Tech has nothing to be ashamed about. You know, they had a great season. They'll look back on it, and they'll say it was a pretty good season, even though they finished in second place. The story here is Virginia, the story of redemption. The cooler team won, the calm team, the poised team, the team that didn't panic, the team that didn't take bad shots, were in the flow of their offense. That's who won the game. So Virginia, the right team, won the game, in my opinion. And DeAndre Hunter and Ty Jerome are studs. DeAndre Hunter's going to be a lottery pick, easily top 7 pick. And Ty Jerome made himself a lot of money. He'll be a late first-round pick to some team.
Yeah, and just to add to your point there, I feel like anytime a game goes into overtime, with it being the 8th time only ever in the championship game that's ever happened, this game definitely has to make it into the top 10 of all time. I've only been watching college basketball religiously since about 2003, and the first game that comes to mind is that 2008 KU championship win over the Memphis Tigers.
I was there.
Yeah. That was just a great game. Chalmers hit that big shot to to actually send the game into overtime. I believe that was the first time, the first time KU has beaten John Calipari. He was at Memphis at that time.
Michael, that Chalmers shot is there's a little mural in the Alamo Dome, and it shows Chalmers going up for the shot.
Oh,
so
really?
I passed it all. Yeah, when you ever come to San Antonio, the Chalmers shot is in the Alamo Dome because that's where it happened, and it shows him rising up for the shot. Chalmers is a great shooter. I don't care what anybody says. He may not have the great NBA career, but he's a heck of a player. And that mural of him going up with the shot to beat Memphis is in the Alamo Dome because that's where it happened, obviously. And that also being said, Memphis missed Derrick Rose. Those guys, they missed free throws.
Yeah.
So Chalmers that opportunity, and they took advantage of it. Chalmers had ice water in his veins, man. He hit that shot. I almost knew he shot that with so much confidence. It was like Keith Smart, the shot, the Indiana. He shot that with so much confidence. You almost knew it was going in.
Yeah, and like I would say that's my number 2 game of like all time. But the number 1 game of like all time, I did not watch this game live. I was not born yet. But 1983, NC State versus Houston. That guy airballed the half court shot, and I can't remember what. Somebody caught it and they laid it into
Lorenzo Charles.
Yeah,
Lorenzo Charles caught it right next to Akeem Olajuwon.
Yeah,
Lorenzo caught it, dunked it in. I think Wittenberg shot it, and it was a short shot. And Lorenzo Charles had the presence of mind to catch it like an alley oop.
Yeah.
And Akeem was just standing there, and
Akeem
really didn't do anything about it. But Akeem was young though. Yeah, Akeem had just been playing basketball about 4 years earlier. He just picked up a basketball. It's a good thing they got that against a 19-year-old Akeem because the Akeem that was 25 would have batted that shot away. But it was a great shot.
Yeah, I mean, I like every year they show highlights like of that game. Coach Val running on the court, I think it's Coach Val, but it's like, oh yeah, we won. And it's just like. I feel that every time they show a replay of that game, every year NCAA tournament, that has to be the best game of like all time. So NC State, Houston, and KU versus Memphis are my top 2 games, and then I want to say this game last night was probably number 3. So
that's up there.
Yeah,
it's up there. And what you love about it was 2 really well coached teams.
Yeah,
I know Texas Tech made the mistakes.
Sound teams.
Yeah, fundamentally sound. I mean, and Coach Bennett's team just happened to be a little bit more fundamentally sound, and that's who won.
Yeah.
And they also had maybe a little bit better of the players. Okay, but that being said, Texas Tech still could have won the game had they just not made a couple of mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Always next year, I guess. For the coaches, means players they're done. Like I want to hit on that Texas Tech interview. That guy's like, that was just a bad call. My college, even though my college career is over, I'm not going to speak on the refs. I thought that was very high class of that guy.
Right. Right. It was Francis, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we end today's show, I kind of want to go on a little bit of rant. Yes, March Madness is a very emotional time for many of these players. This is their last game. This is their last shot to win a championship. I ask the camera people, the production people, stop showing those kids crying. It's a very emotional time. Yes, I understand. It's emotional. You want to let the fans feel the pain, the emotions, but I don't want to see a 20-year-old kid crying. Yes, I understand. It is a emotional game. Just stop breaking my heart. Come on. I can only take so many tears in a month.
They're even crying in the post-game interviews. Chris Beard even shed a few tears about how much he loves this kid. So it's really emotional. I mean, I don't know if I blame the cameraman. That's what people want to see. They want to see the emotions of it. It's amazing that, most of these kids, most of these kids, that's the last time they're ever going to suit up in a uniform. Yeah. And so, especially in college football, a lot of these kids, their last game, their last bowl game or whatever, and so it's pretty nostalgic, man. I mean, so I understand what you're saying, but You know, that's all part of it. I think it's a teaching moment. Like I show my son and my daughters, look how much it really affected him. They're like,
that's
let's
a
just
great
think.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just showed kids, look how much it affects them, and that shows me that they really wanted to win. It wasn't just yeah, I'll catch you later, you know. And I love that beauty about college athletics. I mean, when your NBA team loses, you know what they do? They go to Cancun.
Right.
When the college kid loses, he goes back to school and goes back to his mom and dad. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's a much bigger deal. Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, with that being said, we're going to wrap the show up here. As always, thank you for joining us. One more time, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on the podcast. Follow us on YouTube. Share this with a couple friends. Help us grow this thing that we're doing. Oh, like over here, Marcus and myself work really hard, and we'll probably be bringing Matthew Lyle back on as well. Matthew works just as hard on the Big Blue Breakdown with myself. So guys, we'll be back Thursday, 1:45 p.m. East Coast time, 12:45 Central. Be sure to follow Marcus